Hello, everyone. Welcome to Chasing a Murder. So glad to be here, guys. I've been excited. We're on a roll, aren't we? So today, I wanted to go over part 136 of Life Beyond the Grave, which is, talking about the Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell case. The Doomsday Couple, serial killers. Well, Chad's accused at this moment. His trial's coming up. In this part of the timeline, it seemed that Chad Daybell felt as though he needed to muster up the courage to accept his wife's fate. After all, he had had visions of the future, and while he was with Julie Rowe even, had visions that his wife, Tammy, would die before she become 50. We learned that Lori Vallow had lived up to her part of this deal, it seems, and Charles, well, he was deceased. And according to Lori, his body was set free from the demon invasion. You would think that this would be the end of the invading demons or dark spirits, but Lori was just warming up. Lori claimed that her 16-year-old daughter, Tylee Ryan, her body had actually been possessed by a demon by the name of Viola. Her 7-year-old autistic son, J.J. Vallow, well, he also was being invaded and was facing impending doom. You would think that Tylee must know by now at least what is actually happening when it comes to being a zombie. She must be worried to death. She is doing whatever she can to please her mother, cleaning her room, watching JJ, and keeping her mouth shut. Now remember, Lori has mentioned multiple times how Tylee Ryan has been sick her entire life. Nearly every day of her life. Many people who have followed this case so closely wonder, did this have to do with something more than illness? I myself have wondered if it was because the fear that she lived in every single day of her life. Tylee was constantly judged by her mother, and seeing what happened to those that were surrounding Lori must have been incredibly scary. She must think back on a time when her father, Joseph Ryan, had these accusations against Lori when she was too young to understand. But maybe she was having second thoughts. You have to wonder. Tylee Ryan was living through enough torture, I'd have to say. And whenever Tylee didn't do what she was aimed or told to do, well, she would be reminded that she was like a zombie. Tylee must have felt trapped and that she had no one to turn to. Tylee had kept secrets for an awful long time. As for JJ, he was completely lost, most likely. His entire life was turned upside down. Lori continued to plan and execute even more chaos as time went on. That poor kid's life was a mess. She had taken his medicine from him, taken his dog, taken his father. How much torture could a 7-year-old bear? She was no longer torturing her children alone. Chad Daybell was now on the torture train, as well as her brother Alex Cox, Zulema, some of the most loyal aggressors in the group. And the fact that police first, at least initializing that the shooting of Charles was in self-defense, Lori must have felt quite powerful. One of Lori Vallow's biggest support systems during this was her mother, Janice, her sister, Summer, and believe it or not, Lori's father, Barry, wasn't 100% sure what was going on with his daughter, Lori. At least as far as he knew, something wasn't okay. But Lori's niece, Melanie Boudreaux, on the other hand, found herself in total control of her Aunt Lori, being manipulated. She had walked into a trap with no doors at all. And until this day, it is uncertain how Melanie felt about being in this situation. The truth, anyways. But her Aunt Lori had plans to cash in on Melanie's pain and whoever Lori loved most. As fall approached, Brandon Boudreaux became one of the main targets, um, and especially for a check. And he was mainly targeted by Lori and Chad. And Melanie Boudreaux would be the reason they would be able to target Brandon. Brandon Boudreaux had cut communication with Lori. He wasn't really talking to the family. This is important to understand as we approach October. And after Charles passed away, Lori didn't get that $1 million. She didn't get the policy, Kay Woodcock did, and she became hungry. Sad part that we learned, I believe, the podcast before last, is that Lori mentions how Melanie's kids were now struggling with darkness. And we're not certain if Melanie knew about this or she was supporting this, but we'll go over some things later that I did learn. And you can come up with your own idea of whether she was, involved with this, supported it or not. Exactly how deep did Melanie get into the sinkhole? We're still working on it. There is a clue, and we get that clue from the ranking system for the people involved in their little circle. Melanie Boudreaux's ranking, you would have thought, if you listened to her interview and listened to many of the lies that she shared, she would have been number one. But really, she was teetering, just in the center. She was walking a thin line. Why is that? Melanie was spending a lot of time with her Aunt Lori, sometimes nearly every single day. It seems that Lori did sick some of her top ranking people, like Melanie Gibb, Salima, Alex Cox, to either babysit Melanie or keep a close eye on her. Some of the major secrets attached to this case are with Melanie Boudreaux, Melanie Gibb, Aubrey, Alex Cox, Salima, Tylee Ryan. They know so much more that no one has heard. This, you must understand, that from here on, that Lori is just that good at manipulating people. She is the voice over everyone, including Chad Daybell. We will actually listen to this phone call, the conversations that actually give you the idea of who is boss between Chad and Lori. And if you understand exactly who Chad Daybell was before he even met Tammy, it kind of gives you an idea why he was so easily sucked in. Remember, he wanted to be adored by the most attractive women. He seems to be very excited by Lori, and he can feel a sense of power he never felt before. After all, Chad envied men with beautiful women by their sides, especially sports stars, and he must feel that this newfound power is hard to resist. After all this as well, his moral, God-fearing ways were actually slipping under the radar. God wasn't priority anymore. It was replaced by lust, money, and power. Chad Daybell's children, who were once come first in his life, his visions, his future, his past, this is all being erased, and they're being erased one by one. But he's not doing it alone. He's doing it with the help from the queen manipulator, Lori Vallow. In text, we learn, Chad is kind of hesitant of lowering the rankings of Lori's children at first, but then Lori's persistence and displeased demeanor forces Chad to second think his original ranking. Again, a manipulation tactic to make Chad feel as if she's getting information from him, but when he gives it to her, she isn't liking it. So he has to offer a different outcome. It doesn't just work negatively. She actually will use this a few times when Tylee seems to be trying a little bit harder reaching out to her mother. But in most cases, it seems that Lori's insistence of lowering these ranking numbers for Tammy, Tylee, and JJ, she's wanting to accelerate their doom, and that is fact. And if you reread these texts and take out the nonsense or code, kind of, covering what they're really saying, the meaning of what these texts say might surprise you. In many cases, what she's really saying in these texts is, those numbers are not low enough. I am done with these kids. They are finished. That's it. Looking at some of Chad's texts, it seems that he's kind of asking her, are you sure? You're the boss, so I will go back and make what you say so. Whatever you say, goddess, my queen. And you will hear me say this several times throughout this series, that I believe that Lori wanted her own temple. She wanted her own place yesterday. This is a 100% speculation, but I'm really hoping that one day that some of these people who know more will come forward and share it. What isn't speculation is she needed tons of money yesterday at any cost. She got Charles' computer after he passed away a few weeks after. She goes through it. She's searching Gerber life insurance policies for her kids. I think it's called the grown-up plan. And only a handful of people are actually questioning what happened to Charles. So we learned that Charles Vallow's ex-wife, Cheryl, Kay Woodcock, Adam Cox, they're all concerned about what happened to Charles, even Brandon. Cheryl Wheeler believed that Lori and Alex had 100% planned to murder Charles. Charles' former attorney knew that Lori had threatened to murder him. Not only that, the attorney actually shares information that Lori made it very clear that she didn't want Charles or JJ in her life around her anymore. This is not what you will hear come out of her mouth directly at all. She thinks she's being slick, telling Charles, things that she's telling him, but Charles is starting to record what she says. He's telling other people what she says. And, well, she's not as slick as she thought she was. At the end of July, Charles is prepared to be cremated. Children are marked for certain doom. Chad and Lori are talking about plans of going to Hawaii, and Lori continued to ignore Kay and her need to see JJ. It's around this time that Kay is learning just how cold and calculated her sister-in-law can be. We learn that Lori seems very stressed by her responsibilities as a mother, a wife, and wants nothing to do with it. It's also around this time that Chad and Tammy take a trip to Springfield, Utah, where they are from. Chad Daybell actually has one of his authors there for a movie opening. They plan to attend it. That movie opening was, I think the movie's called The Fighting Preacher. Tammy missed her sister's birthday. And, well, instead of going there to visit, Chad drives up. He sits in the car. Tammy gets out the car, takes a gift to her sister, and basically leaves. So I'm going to go ahead and pause right here because I've been trying to take notes on the Chad Daybell trial and watching, jury selection and all these things. And as you know, guys, I do this by myself. I'm not getting paid, so it's like a bunch of free time, and I'm just really struggling to be able to find enough time to do it all. But I want to say thank you to those that have been so loyal and very supportive, and subscribe, like, and help us out here. The most important thing is making sure that the truth comes out and that you see these victims get justice. It really is top priority. All right, guys, I love you. I'm going to get off here, and I hope I remember, my gosh, to start off with listening to what Tammy's sister had to say when Tammy showed up at her house and how she felt about that. All right, see you guys soon.